Well, hey there. Welcome to my scrappy block of the month of the illusion sampler pattern. Hey, it's block month number 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're doing this lovely guy right here. You can see my assorted pieces of fabrics and shapes that I'm going to be using as I talk through this block. Let's get started and look at the main block and see what it has to do. Okay, so cutting directions for that main block. Now remember, I'm not saying the big shapes and sizes because we're holding true to that copyright for the amazing designer Scott Flanagan. Check his info out below in the description. He does amazing work. We have some big squares and we have some small squares. The small squares are going to be left alone for the second because we're using these big squares and we're going to be making half square triangles using the no waste method. The no waste method. That's right. We're going to be taking two squares and we're going to be turning them in to two half square triangles. The first thing that you want to do is you want to make a diagonal line down the center. And I've actually put a diagonal line on either side of it too. Now the directions just say to do that middle line and then you're going to be sewing on either side. But I got this great ruler. It's a quarter inch square ruler, so you can see when I put it right on top, the little dash line is that center line, and then I drew the line on either side. There are several of these rulers out there on the market. Some of them have that little slot, some of them don't. I'll link this one in my description below because this is the one that I like. If you don't have one of these, don't worry. You can just use your regular ruler and do a line down the center, and then just remember to sew a quarter inch on either side of that middle line. But I like to make it easy for myself, and since I have this guy, I use this guy because I think he's super cute. All right, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pairing all of the backgrounds up with all of the squares. So you put that on top facing together, and we're going to stitch a quarter inch on either side of that center drawn line. Once that's done, we'll be cutting actually on that center drawn line so that, and I'll just do a quick open up. When we open them up, it'll make that lovely half square triangle, and it'll be one on both sides. So two squares become two half square triangles. How awesome is that? So this is a lot of half square triangles, guys. So I'll take a couple pictures of one of them that I'm working on, and then I'll see you at the end after all of these are done. Before I go, it says in the directions that the fabrics 1 through 9, you're going to cut a total of 9 squares, and then there's a little asterisk mark that says cut 1 of each fabric and 2 of fabric 2. So you're actually making 10 squares. In previous directions, it'll say a total of 10, but this is a little asterisk. So I want to point that out if you're following along, doing the block of the month with me, or if you're seeing that in some future iteration of this pattern. I did not pick fabric 2 as a double. That's the fabric 2. It's the orange. I actually have 2 different fabrics that I use for fabric 6. So I decided to use both of them. You know, it's a scrappy quilt for me, so I'm making it even more scrappy by kind of venturing outside of the directions a little bit. But please feel free to double number 2 if that's what your cup of tea is, or any other piece of colors in there. Just pay attention that you need to make sure that that fabric 5, you really have enough of those, because that's going to become important when we piece all these half square triangles and squares together. So let's go make those half square triangles, and I'll see you in just a moment. Okay, and we're back with those half square triangles. I'm going to take a little moment to point out one of my mistakes. That's right. I point out my mistakes here to hopefully dissuade you from making them as well. So in the instructions, it says I need to cut 5 of the fabric 5 squares for the half square triangles, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9, cut 1 of each, and then there's a side note that says 2 of fabric 2, which is that orange. So I didn't realize that that 5 was missing from the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have an extra pair of half square triangles, and of course I had to cut an extra background because I thought I would need them, but I don't. But that's okay, they're pretty. Maybe I'll add them to some other Scrappy quilt in the future. So let's just get rid of these and talk about the placement of all the other fabrics. Don't forget, lovely little ruler that I use. I'll put that in the notes. And you can see they've all been trimmed down so they match the same size as those smaller ones. And I use my handy dandy ruler that has the diagonal on it, and I place the diagonal on top of that half square triangle diagonal and then trim down to the appropriate size. And of course, I'm not talking, numbers and stuff, but that's what I do. I put it right on top, swipe, swipe, turn it around 180 degrees, and do the other two. So they're all nice and pretty and square, and having that diagonal line means you get that nice corners. That diagonal goes right through it. So not as much thought process. I like to keep it easy. All right. So in the instructions I get a little shop notes from Scott. He gives us permission to make them as scrappy as we want. So that's a good thing because I didn't double my oranges. I doubled my number 6 fabric instead. And you can totally follow what it looks like in the instructions and do everything like that, or you can mix it up. I'll showcase what his looks like, and then I'll mix up my other ones. So you're going to need one of your small blanks, one of each of these. And you'll see first that these half squares from that fabric 5 is actually going to make this cute little bigger triangle. So you'll always have this in that corner. It'll always look like this, and the blank one will be in the far corner. So it's a little 9 patch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the rest you fill in with your variety of half square color triangles from the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9. In his, it shows the red one here, and then an orange one here, and looks like one of the purples there, and a blue, and then a dark teal. So that's what his initial block looks like when he's talking about how to piece it together. So you can totally make it look just like this, or you can mix it up and do your own thing. You'll see that, so this is the 4, they'll end up rotating 90 degrees to make a bigger block. So you can absolutely lay everything out and maybe make a rainbow stripe, or you can do his has 2 blocks that look like this and 2 blocks that look that are similar on the other side. It's completely up to you what you want to do. So I'm going to mess around with my blocks and kind of decide what I want my 4 9 patches to look like, and then we'll talk about how we're going to put things together. Okay, so I did a quick panning of my 4 blocks, and we'll just concentrate on this one when we talk about piecing it together. So essentially we have a 9 patch, right? So as you can probably guess, we're going to piece them in rows first, and then attach a rose to make the block. So pretty easy, right? once you press, for the pressing instructions, you're going to press that top row and that bottom row to the right, and you're going to press that middle row to the left. That way they'll nest up in that 4 corners there in the center. So that'll be good places to put your pins in. And then when you put the 3 rows together, you're going to press everything up. And we're going to do that 3 more times so that you'll have 4 mini 9-patch blocks that will then put together in the big main block. So let's get to it. I'll take a few pictures of this one as I go, and I'll see you at the end. All right, there's the 4 blocks. Aren't they pretty? Flip it over so you can see everything's pressed up. So that's the original ones. There's my other 3. And now we put these 4 little blocks into one big one. And it looks a little something like this. You'll notice that they all rotate. So keep that blue there. And one more, just like that. And feel free, if you've been scrappy like me, to, you know, change how they look, or I kind of like that the way they were originally. Actually, I like the orange and yellow opposite. That's kind of nice. But yeah, you know, feel free to mix them around a little bit. See what you like. See what works for you. And then once you have an order that you like, it's time to put them together. So just like we did before, we're going to put these in rows. And these are going to be great places for you to put pins because those are all 1/4 of an inch. So put that pin right through there and then stick it through the other side of that so you know that they'll match up nicely. Press towards the right on the top and towards the left on the bottom so that when you put the 2 rows together, it'll nest up right there. And there's probably going to be a decent amount of bulkiness in that center seam. So if you need to, it says press up, but if you need to, go ahead and press that seam open. It's really up to you, of course. This is your quilt. And again, watch out for those little 1/4 of an inch ones because that's going to match up with the 1/4 of an inch over there. If you put your pin right here and then through the next one on the other side, you can get some nice points and you don't get those little triangle tops cut off. All right, so that's what I'm going to do right now. Put this block together. I'll take some pictures as I go, and I'll see you at the end of this main block. Let's get going. There she is. Look at that pretty little square. It's so nice. I love the big triangles in each of the 4 quadrants. Let me flip her over. I pressed down instead of up, although like I said, that's pretty bulky, guys. If you want to open it up, open it up. Give this little feller a nice best press or starch and set them aside because we are moving on to those accent strips. All right, so you can see I have my fabric all right here. There's some background 2s and 4s. 2s and 4s, 2s and 4s. Look at those itty bitty squares. Itty bitty baby squares, and then some bigger ones. I have a bunch of rectangles. 12 from the colors. So because I'm scrappy and some colors have multiple fabrics, that's the ones I've doubled. So I've doubled my oranges, I doubled my light teals, and I doubled my purples. But feel free, I think they have in theirs a rainbow, so it goes red, orange, yellow, green, blah, 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 red, orange, yellow. Feel free to make your rainbow the way you want it, or mix it up, mix and match, because these are going to be turned into flying geese. But before we do that, we get to go and do this pile. So over in this section, you'll see I have them all pinned together in the little groupings. So you'll see, I'll just undo this one right here. There's so many little pieces. Look at all of this. So these are going with these little squares. Little square, little rectangle, medium rectangle, bigger rectangle. And we're making kind of a modern-ish square in a square block. So let's take a look and see what we're going to do. All right, so these are our pieces, and if you look at the diagram, it shows everything laid out in order, and it looks a little something like this. I'll move everything around. I tried really hard when I cut this one to get all the little swirls going in the same direction. So we'll see how it ends up, and hopefully I'm paying attention and I keep the same as I piece. So it looks like this. It's going to have you piece this middle row first and press towards the pretty colors away from that background. And then we're going to piece the 3 rows together. And then we're going to press away towards the outside. So this one will go down and this seam will go up. So that we'll make a bunch of these sort of modern-ish square in a square. We're going to be doing this 5 times with all the other colors. All right, so let me start with this little purple guy. I'll take some pictures as I go, as usual, and I'll see you at the end with 5 little blocks. Here we go. There's the finished purple, and there are my other 4, so you know what that means. Let's put them in order for the accent strip. So you'll see that the red one is our lonesome guy. He goes over there, and then the order is teal, purple, orange, blue. But here's where it gets interesting. We need to switch these around a little bit, so they look a little different. There we go. So everything's facing in sort of a different way. Pretty cool, huh? So we're going to put all these together, all these little seams, and we're going to press all of them to the right. And the nice thing about this layout is that because none of these rows are butting up against each other, you're not going to hit any really awkward seams, which is nice. All right, so I'm going to go and do this. I'll see you in just a couple, and then we'll move on. All right, there's the cute little accent strip, the little lonesome, and then the 4-piece. Give this fella a nice little press, and let's set it aside and grab the rest of the fabric for the second accent strip. All right, so we have a bunch of squares from background 4. You'll see that I've already drawn a diagonal across. That's right, draw a diagonal all the way across, because we're going to be making flying geese. Oh, how I love flying geese. We have 12 little rectangles here, and you'll see in the picture that the colors that the quilt doubled was the yellows, the oranges, and the reds. Everything else has one of each. I did something a little different. I got the orange, but I also have my 2 teals, and I also have 2 of my purples doubled as well. So what I recommend after you've drawn your line across is to put these pieces of fabric in a pleasing order. Whether that's a rainbow or a more scrappy kind of look, I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm going to stick with the kind of the rainbow idea, and this is the order that I've settled on. I made sure that any of my plain or solid colors of fabric were interspersed in between prints, just to give it a nice little different look. All right, so it is flying geese time. When you take one of your rectangles, you're going to put the square on one side. You're going to stitch. Then you're going to cut away the extra. Then you're going to fold open and press and do the exact same thing on the other side. So let me do one of them with you and I'll be right back. All right, so flying geese fun the video way. So this is the magic of cameras. Here's our little rectangle and one of our squares with that diagonal drawn across. So we'll place that there on top in the corner. We're going to stitch right on top of that drawn diagonal line, which will look something like this. And then once that's drawn, you'll see that it's attached. We're going to get rid of all this extra fabric over here on the outside. So take your ruler, put that 1/4 inch line right on top of that seam. Cut that extra off. And then you'll take this to the iron and you'll press it open. So it'll look a little something like this. All right, so that's nicely pressed open. You want to grab your second square. There it is. Placed on the other side. And we're going to repeat the process. Now I'm just going to give you out a warning. You have to do the one side completely before you can sew the other one. Because if you put them on top, you see how they overlap? This side needs to be completely done, trimmed, and pressed open before you can sew this side. All right, stitch down that line so it looks something like this. And there it is, nice and stitched. And just like we did on that first time, grab your ruler, put that 1/4 inch right on top of that seam, and cut away this extra. And then you're going to press this open as well, so it looks like this one. And there we go. So you're going to do this with all 12 of those rectangles and their squares so that you have 12 finished flying geese. Let's finish those up and then we'll talk about placing them in their accent strip. All right, there is our stack of flying geese little blocks. And now, so what I recommend doing is placing them in the order that you're going to be sewing them in. Do that right now at the beginning. That way you don't accidentally end up putting two pieces next to each other. It's also a good way just to kind of test and see if you like the order of your color, your rainbow, or whatever your scrappy mixed up version. All right, let's see. There we go. That's close. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew all these together, and every one of them is going to get, you want to watch for that little 1/4 inch. That's important to aim for so that you get a nice point. And if you look at the directions, it'll tell you that you're going to be pressing everything kind of in that direction, the flying geese. So that's kind of nice. It's telling you which way to press after you seam everything together. Alrighty, so this is a lot of seams, guys. Put that new bobbin in and let's get going. I'll see you at the end. All right, there's that lovely accent strip. Look at my pretty rainbow. So cute. So you know what that means. We got the accent strips done. We got the main block done. You need to cut all your background pieces. All those sizes and shapes are in the instructions. And let's get everything and put it all together. Right, putting it together bit by bit. There's my little Sondheim for you as we go into putting this block together. Let's go. So of course the big block, he goes up here in that top left. We got the 2 accent strips. That big flying geese gets down here at the bottom and it's pointing to the right. So point it to the right. And then of course we have our modern square and a square. It goes right there. And the little lonely one. Oh, so sad. Little lonely one right there at the bottom. And then of course we fill in with all these little pieces. So we got the strips for the sashing, I should say, for that big block. So top and bottom for the longer pieces. The shorter pieces are on the sides. Here we go. So cute. We got one little lowly square. It's down in the corner. And then the 2 big pieces are flanking those accent strips. So, hey, let's talk about putting this guy together. So we're going to start with that big block, big chunk first. We're going to sash it up by adding the 2 sides and pressing towards those backgrounds. Then we're going to add the top and the bottom sashing piece. Press up, press down so that you're pressing away from that big block. So that big block is now sashed. Let's move over here to the right to the cute little square and a square. Add a little background piece to it and press towards that background piece. Left is done, right is done, so add that seam right there and press towards that big block. Now that whole top area is finished, let's talk about that bottom row. At the bottom row, add little pieces on either side of that lovely little red square and press towards those background pieces, so away from the red square. That bottom row is done. Add that flying geese row and press down, paying special attention to those cute little 1/4 of an inch pots, little points. Top part is done, bottom part is done, just that last seam to do, and then you're going to press up towards the top. And we're paying attention to all our little 1/4 inch parts, all our cute little corners here, making sure everything matches up nicely, and it'll be all done. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take some pictures and sew, and I'll see you at the very end with a finished block 9. Let's go. Well, hey there, friends. Look at that. We have finished month 9. That means we only have 3 months left. Oh, we are so close to finishing up this block of the month. Let's give a little look-see on the back so you can see her. Lots of fun. I did switch the pressing on this little one right here so it would nest. That's the only difference. Flip her back over. So pretty. Hey, thanks for joining me on this adventure with my Illusions Block of the Month Scrappy version, and I hope to see you next month. Please give the little thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and hey, I'll see you next time in my quilt lab. Have a good one. Bye-bye.